Hi, this is Liam at the FSA Tweets, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Yes, hello everybody again. Welcome back to the Dynasty Hotseat. It's the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. And today we are very, very lucky to have Liam on with us. Liam, you can find at the FSA Tweets. And if you don't know Liam's work, he's over at the 5 Yard Rush podcast and also 5 Yard Dynasty. You'll be able to find him there. Does amazing work with a previous guest of the show, Rich at the Dynasty Island. So it is amazing to have you on here, Liam. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. It's great to be on a different podcast than my own. I don't do many guest spots, but when I saw your podcast come across my timeline, I was like, yeah, that's something I want to do. So I tagged Rich and hoped that you'd notice that I wanted to do it as well. And luckily, you did, and here I am.
Amazing. Yeah, it's been great having so many different people on, and just hearing the wide range of ideas that people have and draft strategies that people have. So with that in mind, we're just going to get rolling right into section 1, which is called the Art of War. It's your hints and tips for Dynasty Fantasy Football. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I had to give this one a long, hard think. When you're talking Dynasty, or at least when I talk Dynasty, I have so many things going around in my head. It's hard to talk about everything and narrow it down to 3 things. So the first one for new Dynasty players, I'd say, and this comes with a little bit of a caveat to start with, but don't own the top Dynasty assets. And what I mean by that is the Dynasty community play Dynasty as a stock market. And as a stock market, you don't hold the top assets because you sell at the peak. I mean, if we go back 2 years, Michael Thomas was taken in the first round of Dynasty startups. And look where he is now. He's going I've seen him later than the 10th round. I mean, the only caveat I would put to that is quarterbacks and tight ends. So I'm probably more talking running backs or wide receivers here. But quarterbacks, you've got the longevity. They don't tend to fall off as quickly. And then tight ends, if you don't own a top tight end, if you listen to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast, I absolutely hate tight end premium. So
that's in my notes. Hates tight end, literally tight end premium hater, written first thing.
Yeah, I don't like it. That's a whole different conversation. We won't go through that now. But if you don't own a top tight end, there's no point owning a middling one, because the gap between the top tight ends and the middling ones is the same as a middling one and a really low end tight end. So I'd say don't own a top Dynasty asset at the wide receiver or running back position, just because they can fall off so quickly. I'd rather trade down, gain some more value elsewhere, and try and recoup that value by taking a couple more shots elsewhere. Coming over to number 2, I would say always trade with a purpose. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way, especially at this time of year. A lot of people will trade just for the sake of it, and they'll just send offers out with no idea why they're sending an offer out. It just seems fair, and they'll send it out. And people don't think about the next steps, even if you're trading for 3 trades down the line, because that's where you want to be, but you've got to make some trades to get there. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, don't just send an offer out because it's fair. Know why you're sending that offer out. Why are you sending that offer out? And what is that offer going to do for your team? So do you want a better, younger running back? Do you want an older wide receiver because you're going for a title, so you want to try and get some more value? So always trade with a purpose.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which was possibly the toughest one, the first two I came up really quickly with, because they're both things that I'm really passionate about. But the last one was really difficult for me to try and think of, because there's just so many things with Dynasty. It's such a huge beast. But be the best in your league or be the worst. And what what I mean by this is either be the 101 or the 102, and be absolutely appalling during the season and secure a high draft pick, or be a championship winning team. That if you're in the middle and you're just scraping into the playoffs, and that's okay, I suppose, during the season, but come the off season, you lose so much value by not being in the by being in the playoffs and not being in the toilet bowl or the consolidation bracket, however your league does it. If you're not getting that championship, you lose so much value just for trying to get there. So I'd always say be at the top of your league and win your championship, or always be one of the first two picks.
Yeah, I absolutely love those hints and tips. And what's really nice about them is they all kind of bleed into each other quite nicely. Like once you have that mindset of, I'm a championship team, so what can I do? I'm going to make trades for these older guys because I want to win right now. So I can take these older guys in and I can hold on to those higher assets that you talked about. Or on the flip side, I don't think I can win, so I'm going to sell everyone. I don't care if it's CD Lamb, I'm going to sell them. I don't care if it's, J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers, I'm going to sell them because I can't win this year. So why am I holding on to these people whose value is just going to go down and down and down? And I think that's absolutely brilliant advice to people. It's you're either in or you're out. And if you're in, you're going to go for it. And if you're out, you got to sell everything you got. I really like that advice. It just, and with that gives you that structure that you talked about. So 3 excellent tips. And we're going to see now how you would build yourself your ideal team as we put you into the hot seat for a mock draft and part 2 coming up now. Yes, welcome back everybody to part 2 of the Dynasty Hot Seat, and we've got Liam now sitting in the hot seat. Liam, how are you feeling now? You feeling a bit of the flames?
Yeah, I can feel the flames going around me. I feel like I don't know whether you've seen it, but the meme of the dog drinking the tea with a little hat on in a room full of fire. I feel like that right now.
Yeah, you're just saying this is fine as you sip your cup of tea. Just
this is fine.
So here we are. It's the same as everyone else has done. We've got a 12-team super flex, not a tight end premium, Liam, which I believe you'll be very pleased about.
Extremely pleased.
So you'll be well in your comfort zone here. Well, as comfortable as anybody can be in the hot seat, of course. And we've got 18 rounds. And the first thing I'm going to ask you is, if it was the perfect scenario for you, what position would you get at the start of a 12-team Superflex startup draft?
So I would take the 106 personally. Probably a little bit controversial because I know a lot of people like being at the start because that's where most of the value is. But being at the 106, you're probably getting, or you're guaranteed to get one of the top 6 quarterbacks, and I have a little bit of a drop off after the top 6, and then you're in the middle as well, so you don't have to really worry too much about a run of quarterbacks or running backs in a certain round, and you have to reach on someone. You're always kind of in the middle. So
nice. So we have locked in position 6, and we'll be going around in standard snake. And here we go. And I imagine at the start, you'll see people like, wow, Josh Allen going first off the board. Second, Patrick Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor. Then you've got Herbert and Kyler Murray. And we're now on the board at pick 6 in the first round. So who are you thinking from the names you'd expect at the top, like Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase, and Dak Prescott and friends? So who are you thinking?
This may be a little bit of a hot take, and obviously I'm in the hot seat, so I've got to make a couple of those. But I am lower on Joe Burrow than consensus. I think it's been a bit overinflated with the current or the previous, should I say now, playoff and Super Bowl nearly winning game. So I'm going to go Lamar Jackson here and tie up a young quarterback at the top of his game at quarterback one for me in this league.
Yeah, I like that. I tend to agree with you. I think Burrow, has looked lights out, on the field. But I remember reading, if you sort of translated his playoff games into fantasy points, it actually isn't all that impressive compared to, some people like Lamar Jackson, what he might put up week in, week out. So I really like that pick of Lamar Jackson there at pick number 6 of the first round. And, right away, you got your quarterback locked up. So you got to be happy as we see Joe Burrow fly off the board at pick 1-8 and a little run of your top wide receivers. So now, which is quite nice about being in the middle, we're on the board again relatively quickly at pick 7 of the second round. So you can see people at the top, a couple of high-end wide receivers like CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Kupp, and some nice running backs with Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, and Austin Eckler. And you got Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers as quarterbacks visible there. And Kyle Pitts, of course. Can't forget Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. I'm not going to take Kyle Pitts. You know it. I'm just wanting to point it out. So if you listen to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast, you know full well that I absolutely am not taking Kyle Pitts or a tight end in the second team, the second round. I think here, if I was in a proper startup, I'd be looking at trading back. I like a lot of options quite similarly here, so I try to be looking at about a 5-6 spot drop to try and pick up whoever is left. But for the purposes of this, because I've got to take someone and I can't trade back, I am going to go with who is at the top of the list. I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver. Keeps me still flexible. Because, as I said, if you listen to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast, you know that I like to draft very flexibly until I have to make a decision on whether I want to win early in my dynasty or whether I want to go to a productive struggle. And CeeDee Lamb allows me to do both of those things, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb, I think, is a great pick. I just finished up a startup as well where I took CeeDee Lamb in the second too. So I'm very happy that you're going with the same player here. So CeeDee Lamb,
I'd make Rich happy.
Yes, exactly. As we see some players flying, but there goes Kyle Pitts. Oh, you almost had him in the third as well. That would have been a turn up for the books. As we're back on the clock again at 3-6. We got Matthew Stafford, Stephon Diggs, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, and Justin Fields at the top, along with, plenty of other excellent options in various different positions. So is anyone catching your eye?
So if I was taking another quarterback here, I do like Stafford. I think it's a little bit early for Justin Fields. And as I'm sure Rich would have mentioned at some point during the show, because he absolutely loves bringing it up on 5 Yard Dynasty. We both feel that quarterback age is one of the most overrated aspects in Dynasty. So I'd be waiting a little bit more on Justin Fields. To keep myself going a bit flexible here, I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson. However, I do like Stephon Diggs if you want to go straight into more of a win now situation, although he's not that old and he does have a good contract. That's the way that I'd feel about my team if I did take Stephon Diggs. So I'm going to take a young running back, Antonio Gibson, and if he gets a new quarterback in Washington, that could be a much better situation than what we saw last year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Antonio Gibson, we saw sort of flashes again from Gibson last year of what he can be, and I think with a really solid quarterback coming in, that'll just, rocket his value. So you got to love Antonio Gibson for all he can do in the rushing, and especially the receiving game as well. Former wide receiver, he's got great hands. So he'll do your team wonders if he takes off. As we see a little bit of a quarterback run there with Fields and Stafford and Jalen Hurts coming off the boards. And we're quickly coming back around again as T. Higgins and Deontay Johnson, one of Rich's favorites, fly off the board.
Yeah, I was actually looking at T. Higgins here, hoping that he'd drop a 2 more picks, but unfortunately he didn't.
Yeah. But we do have some exit options available at wide receiver if that's what you're still looking. You got free agent Chris Godwin, one of my favorite players in the league, Chris Godwin, along with Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore. Devonta Smith, slightly younger, excellent prospect. And you got some good running backs like J.K. Dobbins there as well as some slightly tier down quarterbacks like Tua and Tannehill and Mac Jones.
So this may be a little bit spicy, but I don't think Tua is as bad as people think.
Yep.
And I think there's definitely room to improve. I do think that there's going to be more weapons added. If a run game is added there, then that should take some pressure off Tua. So that is who I'm going to pick. I did look at wide receiver. DJ Moore caught my eye, Chris Godwin, and Devonta Smith a bit further down. But going QB2 here locks up that super flex spot for me. It's a young quarterback who I think is going to be around for a while. I don't see how I can go wrong locking that up. And it still keeps that versatility.
Yeah, I think Tua is a very good player as well. I've heard him described on the Peacock and Williamson podcast as just a left-handed Jimmy Garoppolo. Like he's, Jimmy Garoppolo's been to the Super Bowl and he's taken his team to like championship games and he's like pretty solid. So yeah, he's not a horrible player at all. And especially now with that new, offensive scheme they're going to be running, left-handed Jimmy Garoppolo might be very useful in Miami. So let's get him locked in. He might be slightly better than Jimmy Garoppolo as well.
I'm hoping so.
I also like Jimmy G. I think he's like serviceable.
I like Jimmy G, but depending on who you speak to on Twitter, they don't like Jimmy G. And if the person who's listening, he knows that I'm talking about him, I'll leave it at that.
It's because he's too handsome. He doesn't like him. He's just too handsome. He can't get over it. So
Right,
here we are. We're back on the board. We got Ryan Tannehill, Zach Wilson, and Deshaun Watson, one of the most interesting picks available there. And then we got some high-end running backs like, David Montgomery and Travis Etienne and Aaron Jones, along with Elijah Moore and Calvin Ridley, two of my favorite players. And Michael Pittman, another one of my favorites as well, still sitting on the board.
So here is kind of where I've got to make a decision on what I want to do with this team. If I take guys like Elijah Moore, Travis Etienne, I'm probably going a little bit younger, probably going for that productive struggle year one and then trying to compete in year two. If I'm going David Montgomery, he's probably more of a boring running back too. He'll get me points every week, but then Aaron Jones, who I think is an amazing value at the moment.
Yeah.
He could kind of fit into either mold. I do like Waller at this late, but I think I'm going to have to go with my boy Aaron Jones, as I'm sure someone will know. I'm a big Packers fan. I'm wearing a Packers hoodie right now as we record. So I'm going to take Aaron Jones, although Deshaun Watson is an interesting value right here.
Yeah. What do you think of, obviously not, you're a Packers fan, so you'll have more insight than anyone else we've had on here so far. The whole Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon split carries, or do you think Aaron Jones is still the guy until he's not the guy?
So me and Rich have spoken about it a lot about contracts, and I suppose this is a fourth tip that I kind of wanted to get into the 3 tips, but I had to shorten them. But looking at players' contracts is extremely useful, and if you look at Aaron Jones's contract, it is extremely cuttable after this year, after 2022. So I'd be very surprised if he did play in Green Bay on that contract. That being said, when I say in Green Bay on that contract, I mean he's either going to get cut from Green Bay after this year to save cap, or they're going to do a restructure this year, which means Aaron Jones stays in Green Bay for a lot longer, probably 3
Mm.
more years. I've seen a lot of Aaron Jones possibility of getting restructured over the past few weeks, even though a lot of people during the season thought he was going to get cut after the 2020, after next season, the one coming up. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do think that Aaron Jones stays. A lot of the chatter has been that Aaron Jones stays, but to answer your question, because that was a huge tangent, just so I could get in that contracts that matter in Dynasty. I do think that it's a 50-50 split, and I love AJ Dillon, and I'd love to see him as the running back one in Green Bay. I just don't think it happens because of the way that Matt LaFleur runs this offense with Rodgers. I think Rodgers is back, which means that they aren't going to let Jones go if they keep Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Jones goes anywhere, and I think they keep that 1-2 split, or 1A 1B, should I say. But I do think Aaron Jones is the more explosive running back, even though AJ Dillon might be the safer option each week.
Well, let's get Aaron Jones locked up then. Hopefully he stays with the other Aaron on the Packers as well. So Aaron Jones is locked up, as we see David Montgomery, who we just talked about earlier, Darren Waller, who you mentioned, good value, and then Deshaun Watson coming off the board in the 5th round, which is just, if he plays, I mean, that is great value there, but there's still that question mark. And speaking of question marks, Calvin Ridley as well, flying off the board too. As we're now into round 6 of pick number 7, we have got three quarterbacks. No, we don't. We got 3 running backs with very different outlooks at the minute. We got Elijah Mitchell, Clive Edwards-Helaire, and Michael Carter at the top. Carson Wentz, Mike Evans, and then we got TJ Hawkinson, along with some other people further down the list, including AJ Dillon, who we just talked about.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit too early for AJ Dillon, even though my heart wants to take him whenever I see him. I do like some of the younger wide receivers here. I'm a bit skeptical about all of the running backs here. I do think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be a value, just because his stocks dipped so hard over the past 2 years, and he's been injured, and Darrell Williams came in and he looked great, and people questioned why he did and why Clyde didn't. But I think that his stocks dropped so much that it's a good value at this point. But I'm going to go with Amari Cooper in the 6th. Now, Cooper has a decent contract. I do expect him to get restructured, but he's a great wide receiver that seems to be getting forgotten a lot. And to get a wide receiver like Amari Cooper in the 6th, I'm happy, especially with taking out Aaron Jones in the previous round and kind of going for that more win now situation. I do like Amari Cooper here.
Yeah, I think Amari Cooper somehow has ended up in the shadow of CD Lamb a little bit, even though, statistically, I think Amari Cooper is keeping pace with CD Lamb quite fairly. So I think, what great value at this stage in the draft. So Amari Cooper locked in the 6th round. That is fantastic value. As the snake swings around again, as you see Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming off the board, Carson Wentz, brave person taking Carson Wentz there in the 6th round, as it swings right back round to us, as AJ Dillon just pings off the board before it got back to us. So unfortunately, no AJ Dillon. Some running backs that you do have, Leonard Fournette is there, Damian Harris is there, James Robinson's a very risky option there as well, along with TJ Hawkinson and Pat Freiermuth as tight end options, and some nice wide receivers as you'd expect. Aforementioned Michael Thomas, who you just talked about, going in the 1st round just 2 years ago. He's on the board now in what round are we in? The 7th round. Wow.
7th. Yeah. I think with Michael Thomas, I'd still be waiting around, just because we have so many questions about New Orleans right now. New head coach, new quarterback, or we don't even know who his quarterback is going to be.
No,
it could be Winston. Winston could come back, but we've never seen Thomas with Winston. Hill could be there, or someone that we still don't know from free agency, even though it's not a great quarterback free agency class. So what I'm going to do here is secure my QB3 spot and go Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
As Tua, I would say is a risky quarterback too,
Yeah.
just because he's got such a wide variety of outcomes. Even though he's young, he's got such a wide variety of outcomes. He could become the next Jared Goff,
Yeah.
as you can see on this list, Connor. But
Yes.
um, I like Kirk Cousins here. He's been consistent, even though his contract is a little bit sketchy. I can expect him to go to another team and perform pretty well. You kind of what you expect from a quarterback too on your roster.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback too, and to get him as your third quarterback, you got to be happy with that. He's so solid, so reliable. So yeah, you got to love having Kirk Cousins locked in round number 7 as we sneak around again. Michael Thomas goes right off the board just as we were talking about him. And so tight ends now coming off in round 7, like TJ Hawkinson and Pat Fryermuth, as the snake comes around to us one more time. The last few players off the board, Tony Pollard, Leonard Fournette, and Matt Ryan coming off the board too. Pretty good value for Matt Ryan there as well. So here we are. We've got Sam Darnold is at the top there. That would be a risky enough pick. We got Tyler Lockett
Extremely
there.
risky.
Yeah. Free agent Allen Robinson. Always intriguing this time of year to be drafting people who you know are going to be free agents. So you've got some of those like Allen Robinson and OBJ still on the board as well. Only running back that we can see here is Ramondre Stevenson, but I can filter by running back if you're thinking you want to take some of those at this stage.
I am actually. If you could, that would be brilliant.
Yes. So we can see we talked about here, Ramondre Stevenson there with Kareem Hunt, Darrell Henderson, Chris Carson, Cordarrelle Patterson, and James Conner, Melvin Gordon, along with some other people, maybe highlighted by Rashad Penny, who looked pretty good towards the end of the season.
Yeah, so that's not a very nice running back list there. I would be taking them as my running back 3 though, so I'm not too fussy there. Can you just filter on all players for me?
Yeah, of course. So you can see you've got Claypool and Mike Williams as well near the top, and Dallas Goedert as a tight end as well.
So I'm not a huge fan of Chase Claypool. I'm just working my way down the list. Mike Williams is very interesting, but I'd be waiting another round or so because I don't really know what's going to happen. If he gets retained in LA for whatever reason, whether it's the tag or whether it's a new contract, I do think he'll do really well. I just don't know what he's going to be if he goes anywhere else. Lockett is a great value here. I like that. Just because he can win you a week. But I'm going to have to go with Kareem Hunt here and lock up my running back 3 as a more of a contending team. I think having a running back 3 is huge. That you can reliably put into your running back spots should running backs go down or you have bye weeks or such. So I think I'm going to go Kareem Hunt here.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's a good choice as well because, strangely enough, because he's going to be splitting carries, but also very productive. That splitting carries also gives him a bit more of a safety net in terms of injuries as well, which is quite nice about Kareem Hunt. Yeah. So I think he's a great choice here to lock in as your third running back as we start to come into round number 9 as Claypool and Robinson and Mike Williams, unfortunately, do ping off the board. So they're not going to come around to us again. But let's see who we have available as the board returns to us in the 9th round. So up at the top, we got Jared Goff and Sam Darnold. Tyler Lockett is still there, who you mentioned earlier. Derek Carr, Ramondre Stevenson, and Jimmy G, who we just talked about as well, still available on the board.
So here I am going to go with Lockett. As I said last round, I did like him as a little bit more value, but here I don't think that value is something I can pass up. He can win you a week. equally. He can score you 2 points, but having that in a flex spot is brilliant. Just honourable shout out to Brandon Cooks and Juju Smith-Schuster, as they were the only other two I was really looking at here. So let's see if they get back to me around. Is it round 9 next or round 10? I've lost track already. That's not good.
We're moving into round 10 after this. So let's get Tyler Lockett into our team, and we'll go round to round 10. And we do not want to see Juju Smith-Schuster ping off the board. And we do not want to see the quarterback-proof Brandon Cooks ping off the board either. Oh, I should have said anything
as soon as she said it
at all. Well, I'll not mention. Oh no.
Oh.
Oh, Juju.
No,
as is so often the case, the pick before you is the last name you want to see pings off the board. So unfortunately, we don't have those two. We do have some nice wide receivers still on the board, though. We've got Adam Thielen, who I'm sure everyone is going to say his touchdown regression will go down again this year for the 5th year in a row, I think. We got Darnell Mooney still there. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously a Twitter darling, still available, along with some older players like Julio and Robert Woods. Anyone standing out for you here?
Yeah, so I'm going to take Adam Thielen here in the 10th. Have it, even though he's old and he's probably got 1 to 2 years left. I do think having that production for 1 to 2 years, especially with the team that I've currently drafted, it's just something that you're probably not going to find elsewhere in the 10th round. Darnell Mooney is interesting in the 10th. I would play in a few leagues with a bunch of guys that love Darnell Mooney. I didn't like him prior to this season, and I think his value is higher than it will be in about 4 months' time when the draft has happened and when the Bears have actually signed a wide receiver. And the same with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I didn't like him coming in, even though I wanted him to do really well because his brother EQ St. Brown is a Packer. And I love their names. Like they've got a younger brother as well that has an equally crazy name.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, if you search the St. Brown brothers, they'll come up, and they all have equally. I think they're all named after, is it Egyptian goddesses or something along those lines? Egyptian gods. And some sort of mythology. But yeah, I didn't like Amon-Ra St. Brown coming out, and I think he's a product of not having anyone else there. Detroit are most likely getting some more weapons, so I don't think he's going to do as well. So his value is probably too high for me. So yeah, bringing it back to the pick, I'll go with Adam Thielen here.
Adam Thielen, yeah, you're going to get production out of him, so let's get him locked in and get in the 10th round. Very, very good value. As you'd imagine, some of those aforementioned receivers, there goes Darnell Mooney. And we imagine that Amon-Ra St. Brown might closely follow, as Cole Kmet coming off the board as well. You getting any kind of itch to get a tight end now, or are you just like, nah, we're going to leave it until the last possible moment?
So I did like Cole Kmet in this round if he had stayed on the board, but he didn't. So that is a real shame. I do like Cole Kmet. I think that he's going to be a decent, a decent tight end, but I just don't know what that situation is going to be. As I said, I think they're going to bring in 1 to 2 1 to 2 wide receivers in the draft and in free agency. So I like him as a breakout candidate in year three of his career, but it's just a bit of a toss up at the moment. So looking at this pick, can I have a look at running backs, please? I can only see one on the board, which is Alexander Mattison, and I'm not too keen on that.
So Alexander Mattison, you're waiting for Dalvin Cook to get injured if you're taking Mattison.
Exactly, yeah. And Cook, even though he does get injured quite a bit, has shown that he can play extremely well and play through pretty horrible injuries.
That shoulder injury he got last season, and he just came back like incredibly quickly.
Exactly. So I don't like taking backup running backs this early, or handcuff running backs, as most people call them.
Yeah.
So I think if you highlight them all for me, all players, please,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to go. See, Jordan Love is such a risky pick here, and I know
Yeah.
people will probably take him just for the chance that Rodgers does go, but I don't think he does, so I'm not going to take him this highly.
Mm-hmm.
Davis Mills again, I love, but Hunter Renfro is going to be my pick. Again, he was such a good wide receiver this year.
Yeah.
I do think that there are going to be some more weapons added, but I don't think his role is going to really change too much if Derek Carr stays there, which I'd expect him to. I can't imagine him dropping too much production. So to get him here in the 11th round, I think is a huge steal.
Yeah, Hunter Renfro, a good pick here. Also, not for some reason I thought Hunter Renfro would be playing in the league for 10 years, and he's not. I don't know why. I thought that, so he's not quite as old as people perceive. I know he was an older person coming out, but he's not as old as people think either. So I think you're getting good value, and he's definitely got a couple of more years left in the tank as well, Hunter Renfro. So getting him the 11th round, I'll be pleased.
He's only 26 as well, so that's still pretty young for a wide receiver.
Yeah, I had in my head that he was like 34. I don't know why, but I thought Hunter Renfro has to be that age. So here we go. We're back on the board again as some brave picks coming off there, like Will Fuller and Teddy Bridgewater coming off the board. Here we are back at the top. We can see, Devin Singletary, who looked really good at the end of the season. But is that enough?
He did, and I am probably looking at a running back here. Looking at the wide receivers, we've got Christian Kirk, Robbie Anderson, Gabriel Davis, DJ Chark. None of them really catch my eye too much. I'm probably looking to transition and go a bit more of a rich strat, as I call it, where he takes up loads of running backs at this point in the draft, and just if you draft with him on sleeper, you'll just see Green going down on his team for ages.
That is exactly what he did here.
Yeah. With the occasional random sleeper pick. Or if he can get Sterling Shepard late, he loves the bit of Sterling Shepard. But I am going to have to go with him here and take a bit of a running back gamble. I don't mind taking a Singletary here, but I'm going to skip on that and take Kenneth Gainwell. I loved him coming out, and he had the highest fantasy points per touch in this entire running back class.
Wow.
More than Najee Harris, more than Javonte Williams, who is now a dynasty top 5 running back.
Yeah.
I think if he gets more opportunity, he's going to do brilliantly. It's just a matter of getting on that field. Sanders is going into the last year of his contract. Miles Sanders in front of him. Boston Scott is no longer under contract. They are talking about Jordan Howard coming back. But I think Kenneth Gainwell, if he gets anywhere up to 50% opportunity share, will do great as a running back. Is running back 4 I've got on my list for my team. So, and then even if Sanders goes down this season, I think he's going to be great. So I'll take Kenneth Gainwell and run with my draft crush of this season.
Nice. I really like Kenny Gainwell here. I mean, I have a lot of Kenny Gainwell shares, and last season I was just like, are Philadelphia trying to lose games? Because there is no way that Boston Scott is better than Kenny Gainwell. I don't care what the coaches say. I don't believe them. And Boston Scott just emerged, and along with Jordan Howard, just this bizarre backfield. So hopefully things will be righted now, and Kenny Gainwell will take his rightful place with some more touches. Well deserved. Yeah, that is a brilliant stat. The most fantasy points per touch. That is incredible.
It's not the be all and end all, but it is a nice stat to keep my hope alive for him.
Yeah, absolutely. As we end up back on the board again in round number 13, and it's sort of crunch time now for, you're going to pick some older guys, you're going to take some flyers off the board here and hope for the best. So we see some people at the top like Robbie Anderson and some interesting prospects as well. They're like Irv Smith Jr. coming back from an injury, and Naheem Hines as well, sort of further down the board too. So anyone standing out to you?
I just want to take a look at the quarterbacks left on the board, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Tom Brady. Wow.
I wonder why he's still there.
Yeah. Someone picked him up. I released it from my squad, and the waivers must have still been open, but someone picked him up right after I released him. I was like, oh, what have I missed? But I feel less nervous about that now. I think he's done.
I do think he's done. I don't think he comes back. But looking at this list, there's no one really there. They're all shots to start. If there's an injury, but I'm not a huge fan of any of them. Can I just take a look at the tight end position as well, please? I am actually looking at tight end this late.
So we got Irv Smith Jr., someone I targeted a lot last season, and I've got a lot of shares of him who was sat in the IR most of the season. We got Dalton Schultz, who looked really good. Logan Thomas, who looked really good the season before. And then, some other people too. Zach Ertz is still there as well, who's not a bad player.
So looking at the names, I think I can wait a bit longer. So I was looking for, I saw Dalton Schultz still there, but he's a free agent. I hope Dallas bring him back, because I don't think there's anywhere else that he's going to do what he did. But just looking down further on the list, Robert Tonyan for Green Bay is a free agent, or he's a restricted free agent, I believe it is. So he's got potential of coming back, but again, coming off an injury. I did look at Smith Jr., but coming back off an injury. And I just think I can wait on some of my later round guys that I'm looking at. So Evan Ingram, he was taken so highly in a lot of leagues that people have soured on him, and now he's going pretty late. So I do think Evan Ingram is a little bit of a value right now.
Also free agent, I believe.
He is, yes, he is. So I like that little bit of unknown for him, because he could go somewhere and get out of the Giants and do something with his career. And then Tyler Higbee as well, I quite like as the Rams returning champions. But I'm going to have to hold off on those. So can you filter on just running backs and wide receivers, please?
Yes, of course. So running backs and wide receivers, Marvin Jones, Robbie Anderson, Chuba Hubbard, and then some, fallen names like Jalen Reagor, again, maybe a first round pick not so long ago, and Trey Sermon, same thing, just fallen by the wayside a little bit, both of them. Van Jefferson sneaking at the bottom there as well.
Well, as I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers, I believe, on my team at the moment, unless I forgot to take someone's name down.
I can show you, actually. Let's see. So you have the 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, your 5 receivers. Right.
I think that's enough for me to cover my flex spots. So I'm not going to take another wide receiver and take another shot there. I would be looking at running back here. So Chuba Hubbard, his value went down last season. Trey Sermon, obviously, everyone thought he was going to be the guy, and Elijah Mitchell. He went, I believe, in the 5th or the 6th round of this draft. He's now the guy there, even though I don't think he will be the guy going forward. So I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert, and for very similar reasons as what I said about Gainwell. David Montgomery is on the last year of his contract. Khalil Herbert looked great when he played and got the touches. So I do think that he's got a real chance of being a good dynasty asset going forward. If not, he's someone who I'm taking in, without counting the 13th round. So I'm not really expecting starter production from him, but if David Montgomery gets injured, he's proven that he can do that. So I'll take Khalil Herbert here.
Yeah, you gotta love Khalil Herbert here. Someone who's probably good enough to be a starter somewhere else, but he's just unfortunately behind David Montgomery. But that might not be the case this time next year. So Khalil Herbert, yeah, you're right. At this late stage, you got to be pleased taking Khalil Herbert.
Yeah.
As we swing around into round 14, Irv Smith does come off the board just there at the end of round 13. And then Naheem Hines, we talked about very briefly, and Trey Sermon coming off the board as well as we come back to us in the 7th pick of the 14th round. I'll just show you everyone again. Brian Edwards, who I have 8 million shares of for some reason. I'm not 100% sure how, but I think I get to this stage in a draft and I go, oh, Brian Edwards, and then just take him. And yeah, it's not worked out, unfortunately.
Yeah, so a guy that has shown flashes, and even though he didn't have a great Super Bowl appearance, I'm actually going to take a shot on. That's Van Jefferson.
Yep.
I think that he had some good games. We don't know what's going to happen with the Odell situation, especially as he, I believe he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he either tore it or he really badly injured it. But that's not an
Mm-hmm.
injury that you want last game of the season.
No.
Not that you want it ever, but
Yeah.
it's one that you want at the start of the season rather than at the end, because
Mhm.
it's going to affect training camp, and especially as Beckham is a free agent. So I'm going to take Van Jefferson here, take a little bit of a shot on him. That could completely backfire. Woods could come back and they bring back Odell and he becomes the wide receiver 4. But I do like Van Jefferson as a little bit of a shot here.
Yeah, I agree. I like Van Jefferson here. As Matthew Stafford just shows that he can make any wide receiver into a bit of a star. So, if one of those people go down or don't come back, then yeah, Van Jefferson is dynasty gold there with Matthew Stafford. So Sterling Shepard coming off the board. I wonder if Rich is sneakily in this draft. As we come back up here, we got Gus Edwards sneaking in at the top along with J.D. McKissick as well. Interesting player that I could just see there is Kyle Trask, the only quarterback at the Tampa Bay Bucks that is sitting right there, along with Evan Ingram and Zach Ertz at the tight end position. Johnny Smith's there as well, but he's rubbish. So
I didn't like the. He was all right in Tennessee, and then
he was
just
actually.
off the map again.
I'm being harsh on poor Johnny,
but it was only for one season. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It was only for one season.
Yeah.
So looking at the guys, I do like Gus Edwards here as a grab. I did see a lot of tight ends coming off the board, so I am interested in grabbing Evan Ingram here. So it's probably out of those two. Need to have a think. So running back, how many running backs have I got? I'm terrible at taking notes. I should be so much better at this.
So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 5 running backs: Gibson, Jones, Hunt, Gainwell, and Herbert. Very nice collection of running backs.
Yeah, so I'm going to take Gus Edwards here then. Try and get that room in a little bit more depth. He's most likely going to be the running back 2 in Baltimore. Or running back 3 in Baltimore if people want to classify Lamar as a running back and just annoy the haters. But I'm going to take Gus Edwards here.
Yeah, Gus Edwards. I think I mentioned this on a previous episode. I think Gus Edwards actually at the start of the season will have a higher split just because Dobbins is coming off that. And I know Edwards is also coming off an injury, but he'll have a higher split because of that Dobbins injury, and he might be a perfect guy to sell maybe early on once you see he's getting those higher percentages, because you can only imagine that Dobbins will eventually take that bigger cut. Kind of what happened with Swift at Detroit this year. You see them just sort of wrestle away those numbers.
Yeah, I do think that he's a really efficient running back as well. So even if he gets 50%, he's going to be really efficient with those touches.
Yeah, I completely agree. Unfortunately, we've seen Evan Ingram go off the board.
Yeah,
just disgracefully after Johnny Smith coming off the board.
and Rob Gronkowski as well. I don't know why he's being taken.
But we do have Tyler Higbee there as the tight end up at the top of the LA Rams.
So yeah, I'm going to take Tyler Higbee. It's time for me in the 16th round to take take a tight end. Normally, what I do here, which I very much doubt I'm going to have enough rounds to do it in, but I normally start taking a lot of shots at tight ends here. So it tends to be random quarterback shots, a lot of running back shots, and tight end. I just hammer the tight end position now. So Tyler Higbee in the 16th round, who is going to be probably a week in, week out starter, unless I manage to grab a Dawson Knox from this year, who kind of came out of nowhere.
I think
unless
I
they can
do the
grab
same.
someone like that, then Higbee's going to be sat in my starting lineup.
Yeah, you got to like that. I have a very similar strategy, I think, with tight ends. I was kind of browsing over my most owned players, and right up near the top was Harrison Bryant. I was like, oh, how did you end up there? It's like, I must just take you like late in the rounds, like all the time for whatever reason. So yeah, Tyler Higbee. By the way, getting Tyler Higbee in the 16th round is pretty good, because he's a serviceable starting tight end. So you got to be pretty happy with that, as we're coming round into the penultimate round, in round 17, as we see David Johnson coming off the board as wow, that must mean we're on a bit of scraps here. Amari Rodgers at the top. What are your thoughts on Amari Rodgers as a Packers fan? Because I've got quite a few shirts of him, and he's just annoyed me because he hasn't done anything.
I think as a wide receiver trying to get Aaron Rodgers' trust, good luck is the best way I'm going to put it. If you're not Devontae, like if we think about Devontae Adams is a perfect example. You have two really not great wide receiver seasons from Devontae Adams in his first 2 years, and if you're not a Packers fan, you probably won't know, but a lot of Packers fans were calling for Devontae Adams to be cut after those 2 seasons.
Wow.
And during his third season, or no, I think it was just before his third season, because his third season was his first good season. But a lot of fans were not happy with that production from a second round wide receiver and kind of wanted that immediate impact. And I think a lot of people forget that it takes a bit of time to develop in the league sometimes. I'm not saying that Amari Rodgers is going to be the new Devontae Adams. Don't take that away from this conversation. But I do think Amari Rodgers needs time, especially with Aaron Rodgers, who is notorious for not trusting new players immediately and them having to earn his trust. So that is actually who I'm going to go with. He was a draft crush of mine during the season, but he's the only Packer I can see staying on the roster this year as wide receiver from the current wide receivers on contract. But that's not hard, because there's only 2 wide receivers on contract, and that's Amari Rodgers and Randall Cobb, who we saved $7 million by cutting him.
Wow.
So unless we really want to please Rodgers, and we go to Randall Cobb and get a restructure, because there's no way that I see Randall Cobb playing for that amount of savings. Amari Rodgers is going to be a great late round guy that you can kind of pick up and take a shot at. Although I do think that we're going to sign or draft someone and try and get Devontae Adams back with Rodgers.
Nice. Well, let's get Amari Rodgers locked up, and for my couple of my team's sake, let's hope he does pan out, because I've not cut him yet, so I'll hold on to him for a while. I've listened to you, so we'll keep Amari Rodgers right for a bit as we swing into our final pick, as people like Kylan Hill come off the board, and Tariq Cohen and Quintez Cephas, who actually looked pretty good before getting injured. Keyshawn Vaughn as well coming off the board. He's picking up a bit of steam, I think. Keyshawn Vaughn. People are starting to talk about him again.
Yeah, I was going to look at Keyshawn Vaughn here. I do like. I mean, he looked okay.
Yeah.
In the games that he played and with the touches he had. I know that he got into the doghouse with Bruce Arians, but he's the only running back on contract in Tampa at the moment. Going into next year. So I expect a bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? a bit more competition brought in. But
Yes.
I do want I want a lot more shares of him. Saying that he's the only running back on contract now has got me thinking maybe Fournette is still there, but
Maybe.
I'm going to stick to my guns, and I think he is the only one.
Yeah.
So I did like him here. The other guys I'm looking at here, I'm not looking at wide receiver. We're looking at
Well, we got Antonio Brown, someone who's definitely not under contract at Tampa Bay at the top. So I don't think you're going to be looking at him.
No, definitely not. Tim Patrick, John Brown, Dwayne Eskridge. I don't like any of them. The only guy that has really caught my eye wide receiver wise is Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think in the
Yeah.
18th round, that is an absolutely great picker.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a late round flyer, because they can save a lot by getting rid of Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Even if they bring in a new asset in whatever way in the running or in the wide receiver room, I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be a great wide receiver too, with a bit more under his belt.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys that I was going to mention, Austin Hooper, tight end
Mm-hmm.
for the Browns, Brevin Jordan, tight end for the Texans. I liked him coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Brevin Jordan is a looking further ahead pick.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll break out in this year. I think if he does, it'll be in his year 3 season, as we see tight ends do often.
Yeah.
And Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback. He's a free agent this year, so someone
Yes.
may take a shot at making him a starter again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
So I think I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky here in the 18th. I mean, it's an 18th round pick. If he becomes my QB4, brilliant. If not,
Yeah.
he's probably going to sign another backup contract for another year. And who knows, he could become a starter. And that value, I don't think anyone is going to increase in value from where they are right now more than
Mm-hmm.
he will.
Yeah.
If that happens, that is.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet to have, especially with your last pick. You know, if you can get a potential starting quarterback with your last pick, I mean, happy days. So let's get Mitch Trubisky locked in as our final pick, as we round off the draft with Antonio Brown, Tim Patrick, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and who was the very last pick? Let's go and see. It was John Brown was the very last pick. So let's pull up our team here, Liam, and see how we did. So at quarterback, we got Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, and Mitch Trubisky. Pretty solid quarterback room there. We got a couple of running backs. We got Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, Kenny Gainwell, Khalil Herbert, and Gus Edwards. And then we've got our strong wide receiver core, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, both from Dallas. We got Tyler Lockett and Adam Thielen, Hunter Renfrow, Van Jefferson, soon to be MVP Amari Rodgers, and our only tight end, Tyler Higbee. How are you feeling about that draft? You pretty happy?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. The one thing I would say is I did notice that I took Lamb and Cooper as soon as I said I'll take Cooper. So if this was a real dynasty draft, I would be looking at trading CeeDee Lamb away as my second, or was it my first piece of advice? I can't remember which one now. It was an hour ago. I don't remember that far away. But yeah, one of my pieces of advice was don't own a top dynasty asset, and I think Lamb has more room to go down than he does to go up. If he has an injury like an ACL injury, he goes down in value quite a bit, whereas Lamb, if he doesn't really have much room to go up in the dynasty ranking, so I'd probably be trading Lamb away. Sorry, Rich, if you're listening, to try and get another middling wide receiver. So you could take a shot at Calvin Ridley and recoup a lot of value in between those, or I could even move to take a running back or trade for a running back, and gain a bit of value there. So those are that's probably the move I'd make if I had this team. But that still allowed me to be flexible right at the start and go either win now or win soon, should I say, or
Yeah.
a productive struggle for the future.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, you're definitely going to find buyers for CD Lamb everywhere you look. So, yeah, that shouldn't be too difficult to do. So, Liam, I just got to say, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. And you've got some really exciting news for all the listeners here as well. So I'll hand the floor over to you to share it with everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was very fun. It's a great idea for a podcast. I don't know how no one really thought about doing it like this. But yeah, it's great idea for a podcast. So kudos to you. I think so. The big bit of news that I wanted to drop. So there's a few of us in the UK fantasy football community that have been thinking about an event where a lot of the UK community gets together. I know that over in the US they have the FF Expo. When that's happening, you see tweet after tweet after tweet when you're scrolling down your timeline on Twitter. So we've got a vision where that becomes a reality for the UK as well. And this is the first year where we've been able to make it a reality. So when I say we, that is myself, obviously, Rich at Dynasty Island, Dan Hughes, I believe his Twitter handle, I'm awful at this, but I believe his Twitter handle is at Dan Hughes 99 or something along those lines, 89. And Pitsy, I'm sorry, Pitsy, if you're listening, I don't remember your handle at all. Probably should have written them down before the show, but as I said, I'm not very good at notes. But yeah, us four have been working towards this for a number of weeks now. We're locking down a venue as we speak in London. Probably by the time this podcast goes out, we've announced it. I think we're looking at Thursday the 24th to announce the venue if we've locked it down by then. So yeah, go over to @_UKFFC, that is UK Fantasy Football Collective. So again, @_UKFFC. There will be news on there by the time you hear this podcast. I'm not going to reveal anything more than that, but we are looking at doing some sort of UK fantasy football event. And it will be a ticket-based system, so first come, first serve.
Absolutely amazing. So yeah, guys, make sure you check that out. I'll put the links for everything in the post for this on Twitter. What an amazing idea. And, that means great things coming for, the UK fantasy football scope. And, all thanks to Liam and his mates for organising that. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much as well for coming on to the Dynasty Hot Seat. And, as the seat cools down for another week, I just want to remind everyone listening, make sure that you've subscribed to everything, whatever you're listening to us in, try and give it a review if you can. It always really helps. And remember, even though we're cooling down here for 1 week, keep yourself and your teams lit. See you next week.